Thanks, Paul and Evelyn, for once again allowing me to come and speak about a subject that I'm obsessed with. So, this type of subject is not really that easy of a subject. It's a little difficult to make it easy, especially for people that are not that familiar with the basic ideas. We all come here from out on the street, and we have so many other things going on in our lives that it's hard to focus even on this subject because it can seem rather arcane, removed from our ordinary life. And so, in order to remedy that, what we're going to do, what I'd like everyone to do, not mandatory if you don't want to, if we chant one Om, you've all heard this word Om, right? And then just after the Om, we'll stay quiet for 5 seconds. Hopefully some people's minds, hopefully my mind, will get a little quieter, and then we'll begin to talk. So join me in this. Sahana bhavatu sahano bhunaktu sahaviryam karvavai tejasvinavadi tamastu ma vidvashavai. Om shanti shanti shanti. That's a little traditional prayer that says, we're hoping somebody gets something out of this talk. So, the name of this talk is Steps to Self-Realization. For those that have attended the previous year's talks, I normally don't talk much about the steps. I like to talk about self-realization, but not so much the steps. So in that title, there are steps to self-realization. So I think in order to make this somewhat understandable, let me just start with the basic concept, once again, of the self. It's a critical concept in this whole teaching. What should be appreciated about this teaching is that this is not theology. It has nothing to do with dogmatic theology, that you have to believe in some God, in some revealed text, in the authority of some guru or teacher. And also, it has nothing to do with mysticism. The truth of this teaching is not because some yogi attained some special thing that we don't know about. It's not even like the Buddha. We hear the story of the Buddha under the Bodhi tree, one after meditating, he attained nirvana and woke up and became the Buddha. So who knows what happened under that tree? But we're not under that tree, so we just have to assume that whatever they tell us. But Vedanta is not like that. And so let me try to tell you what is the basis of this whole thing. It's based on the common experience of everybody that's here right now and available to everybody. You don't have to believe it. It's either a question of recognizing a fact. It's stated as a fact. So whether there is this fact or not, you have to determine for yourself. When the Bible or the Torah says there's a heaven, and when you die, you're good, you'll go there, that's not a fact that you can verify here and now. It's just a blind faith, and you live with it and you die with it. But this teaching is very different than that. So let me see if I can bring this out. What is the self in Vedanta? I'll try to make it very simple, and then I'll expand on it a little bit. All of us here have an idea about ourselves. I think I am so-and-so. I am a person. I live in such a place. I have a wife. I have children. I have a bank account. I have a car. This is who I am. I am this. And this is mine. This idea is common to everybody. We all feel like that. And when we're sick, we say, I'm sick. And when we're afraid, I'm afraid. And all of those qualities that make up our ego. In Sanskrit it's called the ahamkara, the I notion. And we all have an I notion. Unless there's some mental illness, it pretty much stays with a continuous identity. I was a child, then I went to school, then I got married, then I got a job, and here I am now on a Friday night sitting on a chair. This is my story, this is who I am. Everybody believes this. What this teaching says is that every thought that I have in my mind, whatever the thought is, I am happy, I am sad, I believe, I don't believe, whatever the thought, that all of those thoughts are in fact objects to you. This is not a theological belief. You have to see if it's in your own experience. Is it true that the thoughts that are appearing, they're coming and they're going, and they're objects to me. They appear and they're appearing to me. And there's another thought that also appears to me, and that's the I thought. I am fat, I am thin, I am fair, I am tall, I am short. That I thought is also just a thought. It doesn't always appear. When you're engrossed in different things, the I subsides, and then later you say, oh, I did that. That thought is also an object to you. So when you say object to you, who's the you? If the ego, the I thought, is an object, it's appearing, who's it appearing to? So Vedanta says, the real self is the me that's aware of all the thoughts, including the ego. So is this a mystical thing that I'm talking about? Or is this the common experience of every human being here? If it's the common experience, then you don't have to believe me. You can check it in your own experience to see the truth of it or the falsity of it. I'm not saying that this is too easy, because in fact, everyone has the idea that my thoughts are conscious thought. And when I have no thoughts, I'm unconscious. But what I'm asking, the fact that has to be seen is that I'm aware when the thoughts are there, I'm aware that they're changing, and I'm even aware sometimes the thoughts go away. I wasn't thinking of anything, there was no thoughts. How do you know that? Because I'm the subject. The thoughts are objects. They appear and disappear. That subject that's in everyone's experience. Everyone here, that's the claim. So you can tell the truth of it by examining your own experience right now. That's why it's not religion. It's not a belief in some God that exists somewhere in some heaven. The self is the witness of all of your thoughts, all of your perceptions, all of your conceptions. not only am I the subject, the conscious subject that's aware of all my thoughts, including my ego thought, that also appears in this. And not only that, all my perceptions, my perception of the world is an object to me. I perceive that, I'm aware of it. I perceive that, I'm aware of it. The perceptions are changing, but me as the subject, that remains. So I'm the witness of the whole perception of the universe. Now, follow me one further step, because in order to realize who is this subject, the subject in me that's aware of all of these thoughts, including the me thought, I'm also aware of my whole waking state. When I go like this, my whole waking state, what do I mean by that? As soon as I woke up, the whole waking world, with everyone in it, appeared in my waking state. Now I'm the witness of the whole state. What's in that state? Time, space, causality, other people. But that's not all that's appearing. This is also part of the waking state. This body that came with the waking state, my senses, the mind, the ego, you have to throw that into the waking state too. So if you can see that the waking state appears to you, not just your thoughts, but the whole state, I'll make it easy. If you think about your experience of dream, then you can see clearly. The whole dream appeared. As soon as the dream started, there was the dream time, the dream space, the dream people. And I also, I was in the dream, and I'm talking to my friend, and I'm having a conversation, and I'm telling him there's a tiger over there, and we have to run now, it's going to be a problem. That whole dream, with the time, the space, the causality, everyone knows is just appearing to me. I'm the only knower of the dream. My dream state in which that dream world was appearing to me. How about my waking state? Is that appearing to me? If the two states are appearing equally, just like the dream appears to me, as soon as the waking appears, what happens to the dream? It's sublated, it's canceled, it's falsified. Oh, it's just a dream. At that time, you take it as real. It's all real for you as long as the dream is going. It's not until you wake up, then you falsify. But if you look from the point of view of the subject, you'll see that just like the dream appeared and canceled the waking, and just as like when the waking came, the dream went. The states are canceling each other. Who's the one that knows that the states are coming and going, appearing and disappearing? They're appearing to me. That me is not the ego that appeared in the waking. It's not the ego that appeared in the dream. This self that's the witness of both the waking and your dream. Nobody believes that the dream world that appeared during my dream has any existence apart from the dream. When the dream ends, that dream world comes to an end. Nobody thinks, my dream's over, but the dream tiger's still sitting there somewhere. No, as soon as the dream ends, everything that was appearing in the dream, you realize, oh, it was just a dream. None of it really existed. It's just imagination. So now, you as the witness of both of these states, look what happened. From a puny ego existing in a universe that's infinite with billions of galaxies, and we're on this little planet, and I'm just a little molecule, nothing, from this point of view, the whole universe exists in me. It appears in me. It can't exist without me. And even when it disappears, I'm unaffected. If I'm cut in the dream, when I wake up, I realize I wasn't cut. It was only a dream. If you can see that this waking and dream are exactly the same from the point of view of the subject, there's no difference. You only call it a dream because you're looking at it from this state. But really, from the dream, it's waking, and they're both false. What that means is the subject in you who's the witness of waking and dream is not in time. Time is in the waking. Time is in the dream. But I'm not in time. What does that mean? My true self, that witnessing consciousness that sees both of these states, is not in time. What does that mean? It was never born. It doesn't get old. It doesn't get sick, and it doesn't die. Because you have to be in time to get old and get sick and die. But my nature is ever pure, ever free, ever the same, unchanging, beyond time. The other thing to notice, since I'm not in time or space, there can't be many. Because the self would have to be existing in time and space for them to be many selves. But I'm beyond time and space, so there's only one self. I'm that one reality that never changes. I'm the light of the dream. I'm the light of this waking state too. You're always pure, you're always free. That's your eternal nature. That's the self. They call that self, in certain respects, God. Yourself, that inner light in you, is the God. He's not the guy with the beard, sitting somewhere, watching you, and is going to punish you if you're bad, and reward you if you're good. God that's the light in you. Think about it. When the dream appears to you, you're the light of that whole dream and the whole dream world. You're the only consciousness there. All the people that were appearing, do they have any consciousness? You're the only one that knows the whole dream. It's appearing to you. So you're the only knower of the whole dream. With regard to the dream, everywhere you go in that dream, everywhere you look, everything that's happening has to happen in your consciousness. That means you're omnipresent. Omniscient, omnipresent. You can see in your own experience, at least with regards to the dream, you're the God of the dream. And all-powerful. Why is that? If my consciousness wasn't there, if I put it onto the waking, what happens to the dream? It can't exist for 1 second unless I'm there. Without me, the dream can't appear because it's appearing to me. If I'm gone, no dream. So I support the whole dream. Without me, there can be no dream world. That means I'm omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. It sounds like the theological God, yes? That God who's all-knowing, all-powerful. You can see it in your own experience. In relation to the world, you could call that God. If there's a God, that's the God. He's never away from you because he's your own self. The hardest part to understand in all of this is, I'm the witness of my dream. I'm the witness of my waking. But how about when there's no waking and no dream? Then I'm unconscious. Yes? I'm not aware of anything. I am not aware of anything. When the waking was there, I was aware of the waking. When the dream was there, I was aware of the dream. But when they both went away, I was not aware of anything. You're not denying your awareness. You're just denying that there was anything. In fact, it's because you're still awareness that you can say, there are times when I'm aware of something, and there's times when I am aware of nothing. But I'm always awareness. You can follow that kind of idea? So now we have an eternal consciousness, which is not in time or space, which never gets old, sick, or die. That inner light in you is your true self, and it has all of those qualities that I've been seeking for in my ignorance. I don't say I am that. I say I am this. That mixing up of who I really am, my true nature, with what I'm not, is the cause of all of our suffering. If you examine it, you'll see the waking and dream are objects. The body is an object. I'm the subject. The senses are objects. I'm the subject. My thoughts are objects. I'm the subject. And even this ego, the most inner thing in me that is my whole identity, is also nothing but a bunch of thoughts appearing and disappearing to me. But I'm identified with this ego. This ego seems as though it's the subject. The senses seem as though they're the subject. The body, it's a conscious body. If you cut it, hey, I feel it. So it's a conscious body. My senses are conscious. My mind is conscious. But in fact, they're all objects to consciousness. I feel like this finger is conscious. But if I were to cut it off and put it on that table, I would then begin to question, is it still conscious? Look in the dream. All the bodies that were appearing in the dream and the dream minds, they all seemed conscious, didn't they? But there was just one conscious subject for the whole thing. And when I know my true self, that's called self-realization. There's a tremendous benefit. All it was a misconception. But when I get rid of the misconception, and I know myself as I really am, I realize that I'm immortal bliss. It puts an end to the idea that I'm a little person on a planet that's here for 70, 80, whatever years, and then I check out and the world continues. Now the world is an appearance in me. It has no existence apart from me. If somehow I could remove my consciousness, the world would go with it. How do I know that I'm the subject? That the world is appearing to me? How do I know that? Because some textbook or some philosopher? Or is it my experience? Self-revealed, self-evident. It's self-established. That the thoughts are objects and I'm the subject. I don't need to ask anybody. Because whatever they say, if it's against my experience, I'm not going to believe them anyway. So if you check your experience, you'll see the fact of the matter. I am the subject, not the object. The objects are changing, appearing and disappearing. Who to whom? Is the ego an object, or is it really the subject like everyone thinks? Is the ego the subject? I. This I thought. Is that the subject? Or is there something in which the I thought appears? We've mixed up the subject with the object, and the I thought seems as though it's conscious. It's kind of like if I were to have a glass of milk, and I were to pour some water in the milk and mixed it up, and then I were to ask somebody, can you just take out the water for me? I want to drink the pure milk. How am I going to separate the water from the milk? They become like one. And it's not that easy to discriminate the subject from the object, because the object looks like the subject. So the full name of this talk is called Steps to Self-Realization. But why do we need any steps? First of all, you said I'm already that. And the second thing is, I was listening to you, sir, and I understand what you're saying. So I've realized myself. Thank you very much. What's the need for steps? I listened to this, and for a moment I checked my own experience. Sure enough, this guy is talking about my experience. I can validate this right here. Yeah, I'm the witness of my thoughts. I'm the witness of my waking and dream. I'm the witness of the disappearance of those states. Yeah, I can understand that. So I'm self-realized. Class dismissed. We can all set up our own ashrams now. No? So why is this insufficient? We hear this teaching, but our beggarly minds, they're so filled with the old habits, the old ideas, we immediately go back to the same things. Because at this class, at best, you can intellectually appreciate what I'm talking about. But it's just an intellectual appreciation. It hasn't sunk deep into your experience. You hear about this, but to understand the magnitude of it, the beauty of it, the sublimity of it, the profundity of it, in order to realize that, so that it sinks into your experience and not just attending a lecture for an hour and a half and then we go about our business, this is the bad news. You have to do something. That's why nobody likes this part of the talk. The first part is delicious. But the mind is such that we lose it. You can't remain there. You can't stay there. The ego has no use for this. The ego says, what's the benefit? Am I going to make more money? More friends? More power? No. I want something out of it. That's the rascal. I'm identified with him. So in order to realize this truth, not as a textbook or some intellectual, but that it sinks deep into your experience, you don't feel that whatever happens here is going to really affect you. You get some distance from the whole thing. In order to do that, we have to make our minds introvert, in. Because as long as the mind is looking out, there's none of this. Where's the witness? The senses can't perceive it. And the senses are pointed out. So when the mind follows the senses, I see a beautiful Porsche. I want that Porsche. Now I start thinking about it, and then I wonder, what do I have to do to get that? Oh, it's a lot of money. I'll save up. Then I'll call. So now the mind is out, because that thing is going to bring me happiness when I get it. It's not that there's something wrong with this. The natural tendency of the human mind is out. For survival, it has to be out. But as long as it's out, you can never notice this truth about that inside you there's a light, a subject, a true self that's always there, that's never hidden. But because the mind is extrovert, we never take note of it. The whole spiritual journey is nothing more than that. Taking the mind, turning it inwards, purifying it, and realizing that truth, not intellectually, but with no possible doubt. When the experiences become your very nature, it will have practical effects on how you live. You won't live like everybody else. So we have to make the mind somewhat pure. All spiritual practice, so-called spiritual practice, is nothing more than getting the mind having the capacity to realize this fact. As long as the mind is extrovert, at best it'll just be an intellectual thing and it won't be of much benefit. It's only when this sinks deep into your experience. So, with that as a preface, I'm going to briefly go through what is the steps. You can do it, you don't have to do it. You can see the rationale behind it. Even though there's no steps, you're that already. But in our ignorance, and everyone here is thickly in ignorance, including the speaker, which is that I am this body. You don't start with I'm that. I'm this body. You begin with this. So if I'm this body, there's a thing about this body. The body is constantly doing activities. We're all doing stuff. In Sanskrit, that word is called karma. We're all doing actions. And as long as I'm identified with this, I can't stop doing actions. If somebody were to say, I can stop actions, I'll just sit there, I'm not going to do anything. There, I stopped actions. Well, you can ask that person, is your blood circulating? Having any thoughts occasionally? You can't stop. As long as you have a mind, senses, and a body, you'll be acting. So the very first step is that since I have to act, is to act properly. Morality. Don't cheat. Don't lie. Don't steal. But that's the very beginning of the thing. You have to, in Sanskrit it's called dharma, righteousness. All of these basic qualities that you find in every tradition, it applies here also. That's the very beginning. Without that, you don't have a chance. The Gita is not a religious text. It, in fact, is a philosophical text with very practical advice for people that want to realize this truth. So the verse goes like this: Karmani eva adhikaraste ma paleshu kadachana ma karma palahetu bur. So what does that mean? As long as we're ignorant, we must act. Until I realize that I'm the self which never acts. As long as I'm identified with this, I must act. So now I want to act in a dharmic way, in a way that is conducive to this goal. That's the very beginning. You must act. But there's a kind of a hitch with the actions. Whenever I do an action, it's natural to want to get the result of that action. Yes? The second step is that, yes, I'm going to do actions, but not like everyone else. Everyone else is doing to get the result. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do whatever I have to do. But whatever happens, whatever the result, I'm not interested. I'll do whatever I have to do, and the result will be what it'll be, but I'm not doing it for that. I'm doing it as my duty, as my responsibility as a father, as a person in society, as a scientist, as a whatever I'm doing. But if you're not attached to that result, the mind will get some equanimity. So now I'm going to do all of my activities righteously. I'm going to lose my interest in the results of those actions. And I'm going to do those actions in the feeling that I'll do it as an offering to that witness in me, to that supreme being that resides in the hearts of me. You know, the self that's in me is the same self that's in you. There's no difference. In the Gita it says, Ek atma sarva bhuteshu. That same witnessing consciousness, that God that dwells in the hearts of all beings, there He is, shining, waiting to be discovered, waiting to shine, to shed His grace on us, if we only turn to Him. You see, it's starting to sound a little theological, right? But you can understand the theology here is that that God is just that witness that's lighting up all my thoughts. The third step. In the previous step, the idea was, I'm the body, I'm doing these actions, but I'm not attached to the result, and I'm kind of offering it up to that Supreme Being. But here, in the next stage, that's the third stage, you're no longer an agent, because it's the body that's acting, it's the mind that's acting, it's the ego that's acting. I am the witness that never acts. It's always present, but you can't think of it, because it's the witness of every thought. No word can describe it, because it's the witness of every word. No concept can conceive of it, because it's the witness of every concept. The most famous saying in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is, Brahma vid, Brahma bhavati. The knower of this truth, the knower of the Absolute, is the Absolute. When you know this, you'll be that. In this teaching, to know doesn't mean to know. It means to be. So let's do a couple of minutes if anybody has a question or two.
You're talking about that practice goes inward to the subject. But what about Tantra?
Tantra is an Indian philosophy that started in about probably the 3rd century AD in India. It migrated, there's Buddhist Tantra and Hindu Tantra. This teaching is totally different than Tantra. Tantra says you can get rid of all your desires by satisfying them. But according to Vedanta, desires are like a fire. And every time you fulfill it, it's like throwing fuel in the fire. It doesn't quench it. It makes it get bigger. Satisfying desires makes you just have more desires. You'll never get rid of desires by satisfying. Tantra is it's a dualistic teaching also. This is a non-dual teaching. But this teaching is absolutely different. And in fact, it's the desires that pull our mind out. And like I said, by filling those desires, they won't go. There'll be infinite desires. As soon as you satisfy one, another, and they get bigger. The only way is to see the defect in the desires, that they won't really bring me what I really want. And what I really want is what I already am, but don't know it. So it's not a question of satisfying desires. It's also not a question of giving up all desires. It's a question of our identification with the desires. Desires are natural. Everyone desires food. You're not going to stop that. Sex is natural. Everyone's going to desire that as long as you're healthy. Food, air, and sex. It's going to go on. But the identification doesn't have to go on. You can see the truth of the matter. As long as you think it's real, the desire for that thing is going to be more and more. Question?
I don't have a question.
Oh! Sneaking up on me. Yes,
Not
yes,
at all.
yes.
So when we try to discriminate, there appears, at least with me, a narrative that goes in my mind. Back and forth discussion. What's the true discussion? Which is the voice that one listens to? And secondly, you said about us being the light as far as the dream world. And in the old analogy of the movie screen in the movie, once the movie's over, the screen remains. How does that play? Is the screen self-illuminating? Am I the screen showing it all?
In that analogy, the screen is the witness. Whatever appearing on that screen is the witness. Whatever appears doesn't affect the screen. When the images go, the screen is still there, exactly the same. So with that as the illustration, the thing that's being illustrated is that your true self is unaffected by whatever appears. Just like those images can't exist without the screen, the appearances can't exist without you as the light lighting up every appearance is appearing to who? To me. I'm the light that lights up the appearances. The first question, this inner dialogue that you're having, what is that? Obviously, that's not yourself. The witness that's witnessing all of that inner talk is different than that. It's the mind that has all the questions and all the answers and wants more questions and has doubts. Everybody thinks the mind is conscious. But in this teaching, the mind is as much as an object as the object outside. They're both inert. They both appear and disappear. And they both have no existence apart from you, but they're not you. So that inner talk, of course, is the mind, not the self. And the analogy is correct. You can take the witness as the screen and everything that's appearing. That means waking and dream. And what we call deep sleep is the screen with no images. The screen doesn't go, just the images go. So the screen is unaffected, whether the images are appearing or not, whether waking or dream is there, or whether they both disappear. I'm ever the same, ever pure, ever free, immortal bliss. In the Upanishads, they describe it like this: that which can't be known by the mind. That which can't be known by the mind, whatever you think of is not it. But that by which the mind itself is known, know that to be the self. You have to intuit this truth. You could say you have to experience it, but this knowledge comes from inside. You directly intuit it. I don't like that word because the word intuition also has the connotation of like a hunch. I got an intuition it's going to rain tomorrow. But what I mean by intuition is seeing the fact directly. How do you know you're the witness of your dream? I know it directly. It's self-evident. The only proof is your intuition. We intuit the dream. We intuit the waking. How do you see the dream? With these eyes? No. These eyes were left in the waking state. You see it with no eyes. You hear it with no ears. We intuit the states. You don't see it through your sense organs. that direct intuition of the witness lighting up everything is your true self. So we have to intuit this. An inquiring mind, a critical mind is what's required here. Someone who really wants to know the truth of the matter and wants to decide it not on what anyone else has told them. This is the spiritual quest, the spiritual inquiry. This turning in and seeing the fact of the matter. I hope I addressed some of your questions.